Dear friends, today I am going to take the topic of fishing operation in oil and gas wells. And this fishing operation, I will discuss about the fishing of permanent packer from the well. Production packer is widely used in the well completion for the isolating the annulus or the casing. Here, this by isolating casing, we save the casing from the corrosion of the corrosion fluid of the well. Then also in the multiple zone completion where we straddle the zone with a packer, and in the other application like well testing and the acid job. Mainly in the well testing and acid job, we use the uh, mechanical packer, which can be set and unset multiple times at the desired depth. So there are two types of packers based on the retrieving, based on the type of setting and retrieval. So there is one packer which can be retrieved, another which cannot be retrieved simply by pull. So the retrieval packer easily comes out by unsetting with the pull or by rotation in case of mechanical R3 packer. But the permanent packer, it cannot be unset by simply giving the pull. So here it can be fished out or taken out from the well depending on the type of the packer. In some packer, if we cut the mandrel, then the slips of the packer will retract and we can take out the packer. In some case, we have to mill out the slips of the packer such that either it can be pushed down in the well, or if we want, we can fish out also. But permanent packer is widely used where we have high temperature and pressure, but its retrieval make it difficult because it's required milling and fishing, which in turn consume longer rig time. Here is a simple diagram packer with a packer completion. So here the current packer is there above the perforation interval, and normally we put SSD above the packer for whale killing or displacement or any other thing operation. So fishing of permanent packer involves the four main steps. First comes well preparation, where we deploy the rig and do the surface preparation. Then comes the cutting of the tubing and pull out the completion, then milling of the packer slips. Then if there is no enough rat hole or we cannot push down due to some tailpipe or something in the packer, below the packer, then we have to fish out. So after milling, we'll go for the fishing operation of the packer. So in the whale preparation, we to kill whale rigorously, we first open the SSD and with the slick line, and if we are not able to open the SSD, we puncture the tubing. So once the tubing has been punctured, or we have established the communication with the annulus above the packer, then we deploy the rig. After rig up, we kill the whale with the brine, with the circulation. Then we install barrier, remove the tree. After removing the tree, we nipple up BOP. So once the BOP is installed and pressure tested, we pick up the string and keep on the in the stretch, unset the hanger, then we pick up the string and keep the tubing in stretch condition of 5 to 10 kips above the string weight. Then we rig up the slick line, sorry, not the slick E line, above the tubing completion at the rig floor. Then we do the necessary preparation on the surface for the E-line job, and here we keep the string in tension such that after cut the edge should not get re-welded, and in that case we have to again attempt for the cut. And also the keeping the tubing in stretch condition, it gives a good indication on the surface for cut, because if the string is in the stretch condition, after pull, after cut the string will move and it will give the indication of the cut. So once the surface preparation of the cutter has been done, before that we will run the dummy to see the tubing and the completion is clear from the inside of the same size of OD of the cutter. Then we run the cutter and do the correlation log. Then we place the cutter above at the cut point above the packer. Normally the cut point is just above the packer, and normally we place the puff joint above the packer, so it's better to cut the mid of the puff joint such that we should have at least 1 to 1.25 meter of length of the tubing or the puff joint above the packer after the cut. It is required also this much length. Suppose if we attempt in a first attempt the cut is not successful, then we must have a room for the subsequent cut. And also we need sufficient length for the latching of overshot above the to fish out the packer. So if we go with the RCT chemical cutter, then it's give a good smooth cut, and in that case we need not to trace it. But if we go with other types of cutter like power cutter or else, then we need to trace the cut point, cut face, and then in that case there will additional run of flat mill where we will trace the fish top before running the overshot. So once the correlation done, we will uh, cut will trigger, and it will cut the tubing or the puff joint, and we will see the movement of the string at the surface, because the string was in a stretch condition, and this confirms the cutting of the puff joint. And here we have to see, we decide the cutter based on the grade of the tubing, means what is the metallurgy, and what is the ppf, and of the tubing. Based on that, we decided an ID of the tubing, we decide the type of the cutter. Once it has been cut, we will lay down the E line. After laying down the E line, we'll now start the pull out of the completion. We'll pull out and lay down the completion, and we'll examine the lower cut, the pull out completion. We'll see the cut joint, and based on that we can predict or we can estimate the type of cut face left over the packer. Here it's showing a cutter which is going to cut about the packer. So for milling operation, we must have a correct drawing of packer with all dimensions. Means it must have the correct OD, ID, the position of slips, the packer element, the mandrel, and all this. Because because the drawing is much important for the designing of washover or selection of the circular milling tool, because we have to run such that this washover shoe directly land on the slip. So we have a very small annular space between casing and the packer OD. So we have, accordingly we have to design or select the washover shoe. If we don't have the correct OD of the packer and the distance of mill of the pack of the sleeve from the packer top, we cannot judge while milling whether we are milling on the body itself or by the sleeves. So if we don't use the correct one, then we may have to mill down all through the body to reach the sleeve. Sometimes we mill the entire packer length with bottom mill. So it is another way um, of retrieving the packer. So in milling operation, the BHS should be as below: circular milling tool or washover as per ID of the casing and OD of the packer. Then above that we put the bumper serve, fishing jar to work on stuck string if it gets stuck during the milling or while pulling out or tripping anywhere. And we put the junk serve to collect the junk, the cuttings of the packer, and drill collar for the weight, and drill pipe to the surface. So once BHA is made up, we run to the top of the packer and we soft tag directly to the slips of the packer, the top slip, So we start with slow rotation and make the shoe touch to the slip. Once it has make the space uh, and it's on the slip itself, the shoe is on the slip itself. We 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 give then we increase some weight, and normally we keep the weight of 3 to 4 kgs at 100 rpm and low rate of pumping 2 to 3 ppm, and we continue the milling, and at the same time we observe the progress, and based on the progress we change the milling parameter. Here we have to take care that we should not be aggressive in milling, otherwise the shoe would worn out quickly. And once the upper slip mill down, will the packer may start moving down, and if we have sufficient rat hole, then we can push down the packer to the bottom and left in the well. Else we have to go for fishing, or we may have to mill the bottom slip for pushing down the packer. So it may possible that before during milling operation the shoe may get worn out, so we have to keep backup in milling shoe at the location. The fishing jar will help in the releasing in case of stuck up, and here we have to ensure the milling shoe must have a extension above that, such that it can swallow the cut length of the puck joint and the whole packer body till the bottom slips. Milling face of the shoe must be shielded to avoid the casing damage. If packer is to be pulled out, no need to mill lower slip. And while milling, we have to sweep hole to lift the debris to the surface and get collected in the jug shop. So once the milling operation is completed, we will circulate the well thoroughly at the high rate to make it clean, and all cuttings get collected on the surface or the junk boot. Now after milling operation, we have to go for, if we have to pull out the packer to the surface, then we have to go for fishing operation. That can be achieved with a spear or overshot. If there is no, we are not in, if we have done or there is some deformities during the cutting inside the tubing or the puck joint, we may not, or the hole is not clear inside, or some feel is there inside of the junk or something in the puck joint, we make it go for the overshot for the fishing. Here we have to ensure that the face of the cut joint must be smooth, free from the burrs or debris, such that we can swallow the tubing joint in the overshot. So here the BHA will be overshot with mill control packer, dressed with a basket grapple of tubing size OD. Above that, bumper sub to release the fishing BHA in case of stuck up of the packer itself, fishing jar for the jarring, drill collars and drill pipe to the surface. Here drill collar is used to add the weight at the BHA or on the BHA. So we will run it to the top of fish. Then we will start the pump, and with the pump we will go and clear the debris above the fish top. Then at a low rate we will soft tag the cut tubing joint and 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 slack the weight slowly. And at the same time, if the we followed the tubing joint into the overshot, we will see the increase in pump pressure. At that time we'll stop the pump and we'll observe and bleed off the pressure. Then further slack the weight 4 5 6 and see the travel till the no go. Then we then we pick up the string and see the gain in the weight or observe some overpull. This will confirm the latching of the packer. Then we pull out the packer to the surface. While pull out, ensure no swerving should be there. If any swerving is there, we will fill the well with the equal volume of brine to maintain the hydrostatic. And due to debris of milling, there is chance that packer may have the drag or stuck at some point while pulling out. That we can release the stuck by working on a string, by jarring or bumping down. And this way we can recover and pull out the permanent packer to the surface. Thank you. So if you like the video, please like it, share it, and click on subscription icon also.